Yeah. I see my breath and it's being active.
Voice in particular makes this so entertaining.
It's in here. The temperature's dropping.
I'm glad that you're enjoying my suffering.
Do you enjoy this, Strawberry?
It gives me great amusement, yes. I'm very easy to amuse, okay?
Wait, let's turn this hall light on in case it's a mirror. And let's turn the bedroom light off. I don't know what Soldier's doing, but...
And I said...
I said, hey!
What's
going on? Hold on. I gotta get that. You got it?
Oh, I'm a strong man. I'm a big strong man.
You ain't that strong.
I was strong enough. I just, got annihilated.
I'm a big strong man. Yeah.
Strength got nothing to do with surviving a lightning strike.
Right.
No.
0.1 liter of gas. I mean, I guess we'll take it. It's gas, but son of a... Well.
Get rid of this thing.
Oh, there's another one.
I want to get rid of that. Rah!
Rah!
Please leave me alone! There's still a thing! Ow, 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 ow. I gotta turn to Swiss cheese.
I've got an idea.
There I was.
Did it just break dance me off of it and almost kill me? I'm pretty sure that is exactly what it just did. My ATV break danced me off of the ATV, almost killing me and destroying it in the process. Ooh, yikes! Oh! Alright, head count. Who's still alive? Ooh, yikes! Oh! Alright, head count. Who's still alive? Oh no. Oh no. Oh, the car is very broken. Where'd the engine go?
I got so lost. Did they die?
You made it.
Are they both dead?
Oh yeah, they're dead.
Oh, great.
Oh yeah. Franchise.
No, the cheese, not the cheese.
days sometimes, especially whenever my grandmother was still alive. They would take us like for all of the big holiday times whenever the church was hosting something. But outside of that, there really wasn't any Christianity in my life. So I ended up actually rejecting Christ a lot in my younger days, especially after my name. That's who it is.
Alrighty. Hello, everybody. Welcome in. Valmont, congratulations on getting first. Welcome in, Lau2. Welcome in, Starberry. I hope everyone is having a good enough day. So, our plan for today, as listed, we'll be opening with prayer here in a moment. Then we'll be hopping into our Bible reading. Our verse of the day today coming from John 6:35 from the King James Version of the Bible. Then we carry on with the book of Psalms with Psalm 70. After which we're going to play some more Sailwind. We might play some War Thunder, depending on if I end up feeling like it at some point. And then this evening we've got our collab to try out the game The Bone Rooms, which I've never played before, so that's going to be interesting. But for now, we shall get the ball rolling. Thank you for your prayer requests, by the way. I'm praying for all of you whether you like it or not, but it helps whenever I know what to pray for. Alright, let me pause the music and we can get started. Heavenly Father, we come to you today, and as we do, we ask that you open our hearts and our minds, that you provide us guidance and discernment, that we may better understand lessons that it is you intend for us to take from today, no matter how they be brought to us, whether it's the good word or a conversation or something we witnessed today. Whatever tool it is you choose to teach us, we just ask that you grant us the insight, that we may make use of it and grow as Christians. We ask that you continue to provide a refuge for us, a place where we can gather with our fellow Christians in your might, where we can refresh and renew ourselves. We live in a world full of temptations, tragedies, and enemies all about us, that we see us torn down and led astray. We just ask that you grant us the strength that is necessary to overcome each and every one of those challenges today. We ask that you lay your healing hands on each and every one of us. You know our personal struggles, whether we have admitted them out loud or not. You know what's in our heart. You know what our needs are. In particular, today we lift up Valmont and her family with their potentially purchasing a home. We lift up Lau2 in the requests for wisdom, and Starberry for mental health. That you're just with all three of them, that you lay your hands on them, that they feel your presence and your healing, and that they can push through today and continue on. But above all, we ask for your mercy and for your forgiveness, for we are not but sinners and fools, each and every one of us. In your heavenly name we pray. Amen. Alright, so now for our Bible reading, now that our opening prayer is done. So, John 6:35 from the King James Version of the Bible. And Jesus said unto them, I am the bread of life. He that cometh to me shall never hunger, and he that believeth on me shall never thirst. The bread of life. That is certainly an accurate way to view it. There is that kind of constant warmth and reassurance, that filling that you have whenever you're with the Lord, which is very nice, especially as we go into the later part of the year where it gets cold and the days get short. Now for Psalm 70. To the chief musician, a psalm of David to bring to remembrance. Make haste, O God, to deliver me, and make haste to help me, O Lord. Let them be ashamed and confounded that seek after my soul. Let them be turned backward and put to confusion that desire my hurt. Let them be turned back for a reward of their shame, that say, Aha, aha. Let all those that seek thee rejoice and be glad in thee. And let such as love thy salvation say continually, Let God be magnified. But I am poor and needy. Make haste unto me, O God. Thou art my help and my deliverer, O Lord. Make no tarrying. That's a solid little prayer, to be certain. Asking for the Lord to come into your life and to hasten on to you during the times of struggle. That's when it's honestly, that's when it's the easiest to start making that connection, is when you're at a low point. What's difficult is maintaining that once you're back at your high point. Anybody can get led astray when all of their needs are met and all of their wants are met, when they are well taken care of. That is the easiest, I find, to stray from God. Though there are those that stray when in those dark places. Typically, it seems that that's more a situation where they are laying the blame at God's feet, though. It can be very easy to do that, and I think we've all fallen trapped to that at least once in our lives. It is an easy thing to do, but not a wise thing. Now, though, with our Bible reading done,
this
shall
unnecessary
hop
foot traffic.
into
Plus, it was more convenient for
our
guests.
video
Pro number 3
to play
reduction
while
in
we're
length of stay.
playing
As
Sailing,
park
and
attendance
then
climbed
I
throughout
will
the
start
early
up Sailing.
2000s, fast passes for major attractions ran out earlier in the day. So in turn, guests
Let me
arrived
change
earlier
our
in the day.
category.
Pro number 2, improved traffic flow throughout the park. One of the biggest downsides to the original FastPass system was that guests had to travel to an attraction's entrance to obtain a paper FastPass just to return to the same location when it was time to ride. This backtracking was causing major
Should be
traffic flow
picking it up
issues,
any
so allowing
moment
guests to make
now.
reservations from their phone eliminated this unnecessary foot traffic. Plus, it was more convenient for guests. Pro number 3, reduction in length of stay. As park attendance climbed throughout the early 2000s, fast passes for major attractions ran out earlier in the day. So in turn, guests arrived earlier in the day, resulting in more people arriving in the morning and staying for longer, which increased the amount of people in the park. Guests would know that they were fast passes, which would allow guests that had fast passes later in the day not to arrive until later, thus relieving morning and midday crowds. Plus, guests no longer had to wake up early to rope drop fast passes, allowing for a more relaxing vacation. Con number 1, irrelevant fast passes. In the mad dash to add as many attractions to the fast pass system as possible, the implementation of certain attractions was less thought out than others. For instance, fast passes for Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor and Muppet Vision 3D rarely saved guests any time, as these attractions were theater shows that held guests in large waiting areas before the next
So we're going to
show.
go to sleep until the
Guests
sun
with
comes
fast
up, that
passes
way
for
we
these
can
types
actually
of
see where we are.
attractions soon learned that all their fast pass did was give them a different entrance to the same giant room where they had to wait with other guests. Con number 2, long FastPass lines. Many using FastPass Plus reported waiting longer after redeeming their FastPass than they did with the original FastPass system. The original intention of FastPass was for guests to wait no more than 15 minutes before boarding, but with FastPass Plus, guests were now having to wait over half an hour at certain points. This was in part due to the fact that FastPass Plus was basically guaranteeing that an attraction would be operating 60 days in advance. As previously explained, Paper FastPass had a built-in response to downtimes.
Okay, so that's
where
where
at
we're
the very
going.
least a ride operator could throw a bunch of FastPasses in the trash to give operations some wiggle room. This was much more difficult
Alrighty
with
then.
FastPass Plus. When an attraction went down, it might have already had an entire day's worth of fast passes distributed. If the downtime was significant, anyone with fast passes during the downtime were given an any use fast pass with which they could use on any ride they chose, which backed up fast pass lines at other attractions throughout the park. If the ride was delayed but did not completely shut down, this caused a backup in the fast pass line for that ride. When there was a backup,
how's the volume
ratio had
balance
to be altered to get the fast pass line under control. This was the same compensation plan as paper fast pass, but the new system seemed to be dispersing any use fast passes much more frequently, leading to Disney eventually putting limits on these passes. Con number 3, the fast pass to standby ratio. We have yet to discuss the fast pass to standby ratio in detail. It is no secret that of the two lines, the fast pass line was given priority over the standby line. In fact, that's the whole point. The question is, how much was fast pass favored over standby? There is no definitive answer to this, because it was different for every attraction.
I'm just gonna get around to the other side that we can catch the wind.
Bruce Lavelle recounted
It's
that
good?
this was the most
Alright.
difficult position to train, and it was the key position to getting the original fast pass system to work. The cast member not only had to keep the attraction's ratio steady, but they had to manage the expectations and frustrations of two very different lines of people experiencing two very different ways. The fast pass to standby ratio cited on the original fast pass patent was 80-20.
Man, she does
or in
not
other
want to get
words,
moving
for
right
every
now.
4 fast pass guests, 1 standby guest was let through. This is consistent
You know what?
with cast
I
member
think
and
I
guest
know why.
recollections of the system at the time. The 4-to-1 ratio remained standard after the transition to FastPass Plus, but with backups occurring much more frequently, cast
Having our
members at
anchor
merge
down
points had to
still
modify the FastPass
was
to
perhaps
standby disparity
not
more
overly
often. There were
productive
3 phases
for
cast members had to go through.
setting off.
Phase 1 was standard operating procedure with a 4-to-1 ratio. If there was a backup in the FastPass line, cast members would go to Phase
There
2,
we go.
which was a 20-to-1 ratio.
She's starting to move a
And
little
if the
bit.
backup was significant enough, Phase 3 would be initiated, which was for every 1 standby guest, 100 FastPass guests were let through. Once the FastPass line was under control, cast members would return to Phase 1. But the disparity of Phase 2 and 3 was infuriating to guests waiting in the standby queue, which during these phases would almost completely stop. There was also a psychological gamble to FastPass. Disney was banking on the idea that guests would not remember the 3 or 4 times they were cut in line. They would just remember the one time they got to cut the line. This gamble seemed to pay off, but they were also working against another issue with the psychology of queuing. Now that FastPass was slowing down the standby line, the pace at which guests moved through the queue was much slower. In most cases, people prefer to spend 20 minutes walking at a steady pace rather than spend 20 minutes standing still. But the latter was now happening frequently on FastPass attractions. In the pre-FastPass days,
Still
lines
kind of
often
doing the
stretched out
chop
of
that I
an
was
attraction's
noticing
dedicated
last
queue.
night when I
But
was
it is
off
important
stream.
to remember that back then, these lines were moving
Curious
3,
what's causing
4, or
that,
5
because I've never
times
had
as
that
fast.
issue in this
With
game before.
FastPass, guests found that the amount of people waiting in the standby line was less than before, despite the wait time being the same or longer. Con number 4, FastPass availability. After guests became accustomed to the FastPass Plus system, it did not take long for them to figure out the best ways to use it. In turn, FastPass availability was running out extremely fast for popular rides. Practically every day of the year, popular attractions would run out of FastPass availability completely before the day of operation. This was the case for 5 attractions at the Magic Kingdom, 3 at Epcot, 3 at Hollywood Studios, 2 at Animal Kingdom, and 4 meet and greets throughout the resort. This meant that nearly 17 experiences were out of FastPasses before guests even arrived to the park. This prompted Disney to hold back a small amount of FastPasses until the day of, where they would then drop these held back passes at different points throughout the day. This also gave them the option to not drop these additional passes at all if the attraction was experiencing downtime. Still, unless a guest got lucky and snagged a FastPass during one of these random drops, or after another guest modified or canceled theirs, if they wanted a FastPass for a popular ride, they had to plan in advance.
Oh yeah,
which
okay,
leads
so
me to
most of
row
this
number
is
4
our
and
shipment
con
of
number
trout.
5.
I
Planning.
remember now.
Many people love planning their Disney
got
trips and do a lot
a
of
little bit
research
of
and
mail,
groundwork beforehand.
a shipment of
MyMagic
trout
Plus
for
and
someone else,
FastPass
which
Plus
we will
significantly
deliver after we
increase the
sell
amount of
ours,
planning
and
necessary
a
to have a
crate of
consistently good experience
tools
at
bound
Walt
for
Disney World.
Sunspire.
FastPass Plus was supposed to give guests the option to plan their trip in advance, but in practice, the system forced guests to plan their trip in advance or risk not getting to experience the most popular attractions without an extreme standby wait time. Hotel guests could book an entire trip's worth of FastPasses 60 days days out from their check-in date. This allowed some guests to book as many as 70 days in advance, resulting in certain attractions like Slinky Dog Dash at Hollywood Studios and Flight of Passage at Animal Kingdom running out of fast passes even before the 60-day mark. Securing these fast passes practically became a sport, and everyone had tips and tricks to snag those passes.
All right, so we're going to start with prep you need to do beforehand. So you get 3 Fast Pass Plus reservations per day.
So once you hit the 60-day mark from your first night at your hotel, you can actually go on and book Fast Passes for the whole length of your stay.
Start with the last day of your vacation first. So the farther out you can make it, the more likely you're able to get it. Also, if you take a longer trip, you're more likely to get it too. So if you need an excuse to take a longer trip, there you have it.
So on my 60 mark day, I log on to my Disney experience and I can start making FastPass selections at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time or 6 a.m. Central Standard Time, which is where I live.
Because you want to make sure that you are logged in about 5 minutes before your FastPass window at 5 minutes.
If at all possible, book them early in the day. That way you can get more Fast Passes to do them much later in the day.
You save that first hour of the day to ride some of the smaller rides, but then you try to set up your 3 fast passes as soon as possible after that hour, as close as possible
enough
together.
time to catch
I
one more.
have filled in a vague idea of what I want to do.
I make a FastPass Plus list with all of the days, times, and rides I'm hoping to reserve.
All it takes is some luck. That is a huge part of it. Please do not be thinking that this is like a super guarantee.
So I guarantee you, by the time your 30-day window comes up for off-property guests,
Flight of Passage,
gone. Slinky Dog, gone. Seven Dwarfs.
Gone. Keep checking the app. Seriously.
It's crazy to hear how much like thought people are putting into this and like making guides
You'll be able to click
on how to
hour by
use
hour, and if you just keep clicking
FastPass.
hour by hour, it will reload and reload and reload and reload. So
Dang it,
that's
that one also took a
the app by seasoned veterans of Disney World.
And there are also tickets that are available, like after 5 p.m. tickets. Okay, what you can do is buy these tickets, and essentially what that gains you is 3 extra fast passes. And I would put this under a dummy name on, and then what you can do is reuse it the next day because you never entered the park with this.
And I think that's it. We did it.
We did it.
Some savvy guests that knew how to use the system loved the new FastPass, and the extra planning was a welcome activity, adding even more anticipation to their upcoming trip while also guaranteeing.
I can't imagine why extra planning would be something that you're looking forward to for a vacation.
Disliking the over-planning and longing for the days of flexibility. Many more guests did not know the tips and tricks of the system, and thus missed out on the most valuable FastPasses, leaving them with only one option if they wanted to experience these popular rides. Con number 6, standby. By far the biggest complaint with FastPass Plus is the belief that the new system drastically increased wait times throughout the park. When the system was first introduced, Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean,
that was
two
a little
attractions
unusual.
that did not previously offer paper FastPass, reported consistently higher wait times. On the other end of the spectrum, Space Mountain and Expedition Everest saw their standby waits decrease slightly. As the system was fully implemented, standby waits appeared to be longer. And for years, fans have argued back and forth whether or not FastPass increases or decreases standby waits, increases or decreases overall waits, or increases or decreases the amount of attractions a guest
We're
can
just catching
experience
some
in a day.
fish as we sail.
It is nearly impossible to answer these questions. Statistics like these have
that
not
time
been
we got to
reported
keep our
by
hook.
Disney, and wait times before FastPass were not consistently reported.
Don't
And
drop
even
that
if they
into the
were,
water.
It would be unfair for numerous reasons to compare these numbers. Even doing the math ourselves would be almost impossible.
Is that another
the
ship
equations
there?
necessary to determine what a virtual queue system such as FastPass does to a theme park is much
Right
too
there, that
complicated
almost
for
looks like a
spreadsheet.
sail.
In order to answer these questions,
I
we
can't
would
think
actually
of any
need
of the
to create
AI
a
going that
computer
close to the
simulation,
island,
like
though.
one of the ones Bruce Lavelle created during his time at the
Hard to
company.
say.
Even then, this is no small task. Someone would need to pay an industrial engineer to create a complex computer simulation of a theme park, populated with agents, all with unique preferences,
it is.
riding attractions of varying capacities and run
Looks like one of the
times in
AI
order
got
to
themselves
compare and
beached.
contrast wait times, number of rides ridden, and other factors with and without a virtual queue system, just to get to the bottom of this ridiculously niche curiosity.
There's another one off our nose as well.
Hey everybody, I made a theme park in the computer. Welcome to Shapeland, where all the guests are dots and all the rides are shapes. Here's how
You
it
normally
works.
don't see this many
I decide
AI
how
ships
many
around the
people are
Sun
going to
Spires.
visit
This is
the
a little
park each day.
unusual.
They then arrive based on an arrival schedule that is similar to that of a real theme park, with most of the guests arriving in the first few hours of the day and few guests arriving in the last few hours of the day. From there, each guest independently makes decisions on what they are going to do. To ensure variability, there are 7 different archetypes of guests: ride enthusiast, ride fan, average tourist, activity fan, annual pass holder, entitled annual pass holder, and vlogger. Each of these archetypes determines 3 factors. The first is stay time preference. This dictates how
we're
long
still
the
gonna have
guest
to
wants
swing
stay at the
further
park.
out
For
to
instance, the
avoid
ride
hitting the
enthusiast
island,
archetype wants to
but
stay at the park
I
for
wanna
9 hours.
kinda keep
while
to
the
this
average
course as long
tourist
as I can
archetype
to
only
not
wants
get
to
out of
stay
the wind.
around 7 hours. The second factor
We're
is
already kind
balking
of
point. The ride
sailing right
enthusiast has
into
a
it,
balking
which is
point
not
of 4 hours,
entirely preferable.
meaning that they refuse to ride a ride that has over a 4-hour wait. On the other hand, the average tourist refuses to wait more than 2 hours for a ride. The annual pass holder won't wait more than 30 minutes, and the vlogger won't wait more than 15. The third factor is attraction preference. This determines whether a guest wants to ride an attraction or do an activity such as eat at a restaurant or go gift shopping. Obviously, the ride enthusiast much prefers attractions, but the average tourist is more open to doing activities. After a guest enters the park, they will begin flipping coins and rolling dice, weighted based on their own preferences. For instance, this guest's name is Bernadotte. Bernadotte is the average tourist. They are open to both attractions and activities. They will only wait around 2 hours for a ride, and they will stay for 7 hours. Once in the park, Bernadotte decides whether they want to do an attraction or an activity based on a weighted coin flip. Let's say they choose to do an attraction. They then decide which attraction to do. Bernadotte's decision is now based on a weighted die roll. Each attraction in the park has a different popularity ranking, and the more popular the attraction, the more likely it is that Bernadotte wants to ride it. Let's say Bernadotte decides to ride Shapeland's most popular attraction, the Triangle. Since Shapeland is currently operating off the original FastPass system, Bernadotte first looks at the posted standby wait time. If the wait time is under 30 minutes, they join the standby line. If it is over 30 minutes, Bernadotte will check if the attraction has FastPass. If it doesn't, whether it be because the attraction doesn't offer it or because there are no more available for the day, Bernadotte will make sure that the current standby wait is
none of those are due until tomorrow.
If it is, they will join the standby line. If it isn't, they will
darn
go
it,
back
I
to
forgot
the
to
hub
get
and
the,
decide to do a different attraction. In the
receipt
case that the attraction
for all
does
this
offer
trout.
FastPass and still has some available, Bernadotte will grab one and be assigned a return time. The equation that determines Bernadotte's return time is the same one used at the original
Honestly, I
FastPass
might need to
kiosks.
swap to
With their
that kind of
spot
a
in the
sail
virtual queue
configuration
secured,
that the
Bernadotte can
AI
now
are
go back
using.
to the hub and repeat their logic over again, deciding whether to do an attraction or an activity, deciding which attraction or activity to do, but this time, Bernadotte ensures that they will still have time to make it back for their FastPass. Bernadotte's stay time preference is 7 hours.
I don't know what that
so
one's
after they have
doing.
been at the park for
I
7
think he's
hours,
shrunk.
they will choose to leave and their day at Shapeland will be finished. This same logical and preference-based progression is repeated for every single guest in the park over the course of the operating day. At the end of each run, the simulation gives me a plethora of data to comb through. Almost everything in my simulation is dynamic. I can change the number of attractions, attraction capacity, runtime, popularity, and whether each individual attraction has FastPass or not. I can change the behavior archetypes, the park's arrival schedule, and even how many guests are able to utilize the FastPass system. The simulation is by no means perfect, and there are many factors that it does not take into account, such as these. I ran the simulation 3 times, one with no FastPass, one with the original paper FastPass, and one with the system that simulates FastPass Plus to the best of the simulation's ability. More info on that here. So after obtaining and organizing the results, some fascinating patterns emerged. First, let's discuss what results we will be looking at. Whenever discussing the pros and cons of FastPass, 3 factors always seem to emerge: standby wait times, overall wait times, and average number of attractions ridden. Thanks to Shapeland, we finally have answers as to how virtual queue systems affect these results when all other factors
I'm surprised that
remain
other
constant.
AI ship
Let's
is
first
moving at
examine
such a
standby
slow
wait
speed with
times.
its
These are
sails
the average
deployed
standby
like that
waits
with the
for
wind coming
Shapeland's
in from
10
behind it.
attractions
I don't know what's
throughout a
going on there,
12-hour
but
operating day, when there is no FastPass implemented throughout the park. As you can see, we still get huge waits. The Triangle has a wait of over 3 hours because everybody wants to ride the
also he's
Triangle.
going to
There are
ram
2
us
rides,
if
the
actually
square, and
continues
circle
sailing
have
this
1 hour
direction.
waits, while the hexagon and octagon have no weights and
Which
are
will be
typically walk-ons.
catastrophic for
Let's
us.
see what
Thankfully, it
happens
looks
when we
like he
add
is going to
Fast
cut
Pass
behind
to the 3 most
us,
popular
which is
attractions and operate the
preferable.
park with the original paper Fast Pass system. Wait times increase for every single attraction. The Triangle's average standby wait increases by 15 minutes, the Hexagon is no longer a walk-on, but the Octagon still is. Now let's simulate FastPass Plus. Again, every wait time increases, except for one. The standby wait for the most popular ride, the Triangle, is 20 minutes less than with the original FastPass system, and 5 minutes less than with no FastPass. The reason for this is clear when you look at the wait times throughout the rest of the park. The Octagon, which was a walk-on with both no FastPass and the original FastPass system,
Indeed.
now has a 15-minute wait. The Oval has jumped from a 5-minute wait with no FastPass to a 35-minute wait under FastPass Plus. Hexagon, which was a walk-on with no FastPass, now has an hour wait with FastPass Plus.
Alright,
This
now we gotta
pattern can
cut
be seen
in.
throughout the park when FastPass Plus
Continue
is
heading that
active.
way
It
because
safe
the
to say
port
that
is on that
overall,
side of
both
the island.
FastPass and especially FastPass Plus increases standby wait times throughout a park. The average standby wait with no FastPass was 41 minutes. With FastPass Plus, it is now 67 minutes. If FastPass was completely removed from the Walt Disney World parks, wait times would almost certainly decrease. But this is not the full story, because many guests are not waiting in the standby line, they're skipping them. Let's now examine the average overall wait. This takes into account both the guests waiting in standby and the guests waiting between 5 and 15 minutes in the FastPass line. For our purposes, we're not considering the time in between guests obtaining their FastPass and redeeming it as part of their wait. While in the original FastPass system, guests are technically waiting during this period, their ability to multitask would throw off these calculations, resulting in some guests being able to wait more
Alright,
hours
I'll
than
take
there
care
are
of
in a day,
myself.
and it would make FastPass look like an increased waits for everybody, which is not fair to the system. Also, with FastPass Plus, how would you even do this? Did this guy wait 60 days to ride Seven Dwarfs? I guess, technically, but that might throw things off a bit. Anyways, the average posted wait in Shapeland with no FastPass is 41 minutes. So if a guest did every attraction in the park in a single day, their average wait per ride would be 41 minutes. However, few guests actually do this, and most gravitate toward the popular attractions. So Shapeland guests actually find themselves waiting, on average, 58 minutes per attraction. With the original paper FastPass, the average posted standby wait was 48 minutes, but the overall average wait, when factoring in both guest standby line decisions and those skipping the line entirely with FastPass,
endeavor
was
to do
only
better at
40
taking
minutes,
care of myself
18
in general.
minutes less than without FastPass. But how is this possible? As we've discussed, service
If
rate
not,
or capacity
then you
is
can
determined
continue to bully
mainly
me
by
with
design
points, I
and
suppose.
operation.
That
And
also
it's nearly
works.
impossible to increase an attraction's maximum capacity after it's been constructed. You can't safely put more ride cars on Space Mountain or make it go faster. It wasn't designed for that. So when we add paper FastPass to Shapeland, Shapeland's top rides such as the Triangle and the Square see little to no increase in the number of riders, because they are already serving the maximum number of guests. However, other rides at Shapeland are not operating at maximum capacity. The reason for the increase in the average amount of rides ridden goes back to what Bruce Laval claimed about FastPass backfilling less attended attractions, and it brings up a new concept within queuing. We know about how capacity and arrival rate can affect a wait time in different ways, but what we have not discussed is the concept of a negative wait time. Now, a wait time cannot be negative in the sense that you can get time back. For instance, I can never give you back the time you've wasted watching this video. What I mean by a negative wait time is that when an attraction is not filling its capacity, it is losing capacity. Look at it this way. Let's say a ride has a capacity of 1,000 guests per hour, but only 500 people per hour ride it. It could be considered that this attraction has a wait time of negative 30 minutes, meaning that 30 minutes worth of people, in this case 500, could show up throughout the hour, and the attraction's wait would still be 0 minutes, because these additional guests are merely filling empty seats on the ride. You might recall that this was one of the problems with the original reservation system pitch from the mid-90s. If a guest missed their reservation, they left an empty seat, and thus the attraction lost capacity. FastPass not only avoids this problem, but it actually helps other attractions at the park. Without FastPass, 1,900 guests rode the Octagon. With paper FastPass, 4,800 guests rode the Octagon, an increase of over 150%. But the average posted wait time never breaks 0, because these people are filling empty seats and increasing the capacity of the ride. This explains why with FastPass, despite most attraction standby waits rising, guests
There
on
we
average
go.
waited less, because unlike with no FastPass, guests were actively being pushed to attractions with 0 waits, which dropped the average overall wait per attraction. However, with FastPass Plus, this 0 wait threshold is broken in most cases, as with the Octagon, which previously went from a walk-on to an average of a 15-minute wait. The average standby wait in Shapeland with FastPass Plus is 67 minutes, but the overall average wait per attraction was 42 minutes. This is interesting, because while more people are skipping the line more often than with the original FastPass, the rise in standby waits throughout the park are so significant that there is no change to the overall wait. In fact, the average overall wait per attraction with paper FastPass was 2 minutes less than FastPass Plus. FastPass does reduce average overall wait times by encouraging guests to go to underutilized attractions, so long as those exist. Finally, let's look at the average number of attractions ridden, and if you've been paying attention, you should already know the answer to this one. In the park with no FastPass, guests ride an average of 3.31 rides, but really the distribution looks like this. 22% of guests ride 2 rides, 21% ride 3, 16% ride 4, and the percentage declines from there. You can also see that around 13% of guests only ride 1 ride and 3% ride none. These are mostly people that favor activities and have a limited amount of time in the park. When the original FastPass system is added, the amount of attractions ridden increases, going from 3.31 to 3.77. With FastPass Plus, we again see an increase, jumping to an average of 4.23 rides per guest per day. On average, almost every single guest gets to ride 1 additional ride with the new system.
We're actually
This is
making
significant
semi-decent
and proves
speed
FastPass
now.
Plus's
I'm kinda
merit
shocked.
as a tool for guest distribution. But it's not the full story. This is the distribution graph that we viewed earlier for when Shapeland has no FastPass implemented. This is what it looks like with FastPass Plus when the average amount of attractions ridden increases from 3.31 to 4.23, assuming that the distribution is even and the system is fair to all guests. However, that is not FastPass Plus. This is the actual distribution graph for Shapeland under FastPass Plus. As you can see, more people experience less attractions, and more people experience a lot more attractions, while less people are able to do what could be considered a reasonable amount of attractions, in this case 3 to 7 in a single day. With FastPass Plus, more guests are able to experience 8, 9, 10, 11, and someone found out how to do 39 rides in a day. These are people that got fast passes for long waits like the Triangle
39 in
and
a
spent most of
day.
their time riding shorter waits like the Octagon over and over again. Meanwhile, the amount of people riding only 2, 1, or even 0 attractions is up from no Fast Pass and is far more than in the ideal Fast Pass Plus distribution. This is because the waits for rides like the Triangle, Square, and Circle are so long that if a guest chose to wait in it, they didn't have time to do anything else. Other guests want to ride rides, but they don't want to wait over an hour. So if they enter during midday, they instead choose to eat a meal, gift shop, and then leave because the waits are so high throughout the park. So yes, FastPass and FastPass Plus increases the average amount of attractions ridden per guest per day. It's a system that pushes people to go fill empty seats around the park. And as a guest distribution tool, FastPass and FastPass Plus works. But in practice, from a guest perspective, the system benefits those that use the system and know how to use it well, while those that don't use it or don't know how to use it well have it much worse than they did before. So at this point, your mid to late 2010s trip to Walt Disney World might have some additional context. Perhaps you even know where you land on this distribution graph, and I can probably predict your opinion on the entire subject based on that. If you were here, booking 60 days in advance and then riding 8 or more attractions per day, I imagine that you enjoyed FastPass Plus. If you were here, not using the system, facing astronomical standby wait times and thus only experiencing between 0 and 2 attractions per day, you probably didn't like FastPass Plus. Now these two sides might have some opinions on the other. If you didn't use the system to its full effect, you might have been waiting in long standby lines, watching hordes of guests in the FastPass line cut you just because they researched the tips and tricks and were able to pay for an on-property hotel. Those using FastPass Plus to their advantage believed it was those people's fault for not doing their research and using the system that was available to everyone, despite that system requiring a certain amount of time, energy, technological literacy, English proficiency, and money for on-site hotels. Even if you benefited and loved FastPass, the truth is that it only worked so well for these people because it worked so poorly for these people. Otherwise, most everyone would be here in the middle. But since this is not the case, a palpable disdain exists between both camps of guests. In queuing theory, this is called... Within the Disney parks, there has become a class system, just like in the real world.
Oh no.
Except for this one is silly, mostly inconsequential, and you aren't forced to live in it like a nightmare you can't wake up from. The class system at the Disney parks, for a long time, wasn't based on money. After the discontinuing of the A through E ticket systems, all guests had equal access as long as they could pay for the price of admission. As we discussed earlier, the in-park currency is time, and any advantage came from knowledge. Those that
This
read
is
the
called
guidebooks,
music.
knew
Wait,
the
what's
parks,
being
and
called
planned their
music?
trips had a leg up on other guests.
dear.
But apart from paying for a tour, guests knew to rush for Space Mountain in the morning, go into the left lane when available, experience the rides with the longest waits during a parade or fireworks, and so on and so on. In Shapeland, under no Fast Pass, it takes guests an average of 6.5 hours to experience the top 6 attractions. If people showed up earlier in the day, they would have a jump on other guests. But for the most part, there are
Finally,
no hard lines separating
we're almost to the
visitors.
point.
This was introduced with the original paper Fast Pass,
Okay,
but
but
this was
it's
still a
video.
system that was
Ah.
free, with knowledge still being the dividing factor. This is how long it takes on average for a guest
I
to
do
the
like
top
these
6
videos.
attractions at Shapeland,
They
but this time
amuse
with
me
paper
great.
Fast Pass. Here we see the different
Rebozo.
knowledge classes emerge. This is split between those that know the system in and
Rebozo,
out,
you
those
foul
that know how to use
traitor.
the system on a basic level, and
How
those
could
that did
you
not
do
use
this
the
thing
system at
to
all.
me?
Those that knew the system
I
best
have
could do the
done
6 attractions in less
nothing
than
wrong,
4 hours.
and I've
been
Those that knew the basics of the
betrayed.
system could do the 6 attractions in 6
Like
hours.
this.
And those that didn't use the system would have to
Outrageous.
spend 8 hours in order to experience the 6 attractions. Money was reintroduced into the equation with Fast Pass Plus. Guests that stayed on property would get to book 60 days in advance as a perk of their stay. And if they utilized this perk, they could experience Shapeland's 6 attractions in less than 4 hours. Those that understood the system but had to book within the 30-day window as opposed to the 60-day window would have to spend 6 hours to do Shapeland's 6 attractions. And those that did not use Fast Pass Plus at all would have to spend 10 hours on average to do these attractions. And this is not accounting for walking, meals, bathroom breaks, or any other non-attraction activity. The disparity between these 3 systems and their categories of access is staggering, and it showed just how much Fast Pass Plus favored those that got premier access to the system. But you might be thinking, this doesn't mean anything. Shapeland isn't a real park. These are just fake numbers you made up. But that's not actually true, because Shapeland is actually Animal Kingdom. The triangle is Flight of Passage, the square is Expedition Everest, the circle is Navi River Journey, and so on. More than that, the entire simulation is based off of a specific day at Animal Kingdom, Saturday, March 23rd, 2019, a day with medium-high crowds. We adjusted the dynamic factors of the system to replicate this day as closely as possible, and then simply turned off FastPass and examined the differences. So all of these results, including this graph, is based off of Animal Kingdom, with the top 6 attractions being Flight of Passage, Kilimanjaro Safaris, Expedition Everest, Navi River Journey, Dinosaur, and Cali River Rapids. For good measure, we also simulated Magic Kingdom and observed the same results. And while the park's more diverse set of attractions helped to mitigate the effects of the system in some areas, all of the basic patterns we observed were the same as with Animal Kingdom. So this disparity is real, and has created rigid categories of preference among park guests. While the system does not treat everyone the same, it should be noted that not all of Walt Disney World's guests are the same. For instance, you have families that save up for a once-in-a-lifetime trip to the resort. You have regular vacationers that come every year or two, and then you have annual pass holders that might go multiple times a month. Many argue, with good reason, that a system that gives preference to these once-in-a-lifetime vacationers is necessary. And a system with a distribution like this might seem like the solution, while a distribution graph like this might seem like it's treating everyone almost too equally. However, this conclusion ignores many factors we've learned about queuing, such as capacity and demand. Let's use an analogy. So there is a company that makes shoes, and you have 2 potential customers. Customer 1 really wants the shoes. Customer 2 does not feel strongly about the shoes. If the shoe company offered the shoes for $30, customer 1 would buy them, because they really want the shoes. And since $30 is a great deal for a pair of shoes, customer 2 would buy them as well. However, if the shoes cost $100, customer 1 would still buy them, because they really want the shoes. But since customer 2 doesn't feel strongly about them, they would pass on the offer. Now let's say the shoe store offered customer 2 the shoes for $30, while offering customer
Have I
1
ever
the
been to
shoes
these
for
places?
$200.
No, I've never
Customer 2
been
would
to
take their offer,
any of
despite
the
not caring for the shoes,
Walt
and
Disney
customer 1 would also take their offer,
locations.
because they really want the shoes.
We have none
Rather
in
than simply
Oklahoma,
using
and
supply and demand to find
I
a fixed
refuse
price
to
to
pay the
maximize
exorbitant
profits,
prices
many
to go to
companies will
one.
find ways to maximize profits via price discrimination, especially when there is an excess of supply. But as it applies to queuing, we're not trying to maximize wait times, we're trying to minimize them. While it sounds like a good idea to give preference to once-in-a-lifetime vacationers, while those that visit frequently are favored less, it is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to enforce this. And with the way FastPass Plus was set up, it often produced the exact opposite results. Instead of priority access going to once-in-a-lifetime vacationers, with secondary access going to those making semi-regular trips, and with remaining or no access given to those making regular visits, the actual categories often looked like this, with semi-regular visitors that understood the system booking 60 days in advance, regular visitors and annual pass holders without reservations booking within the 30-day window, and once-in-a-lifetime vacationers often finding themselves out of luck, not realizing that they needed a bachelor's degree from My Magic Plus University with a major in FastPass Plus. So dynamic system, great in theory, not so much in practice. And while this distribution might not look good at first glance, it often produces better results, because while there is no system in place separating guests, guests are still self-separating. The person that comes once in a lifetime gets to ride the top 6 rides in a little over 6 hours, while the annual pass holder or semi-regular visitor likely will choose to not ride the top 6 rides in a single day because they go so often. The guest that comes once a month will probably not ride Kilimanjaro safaris if it has a 90-minute wait, but they would if it had a 15-minute wait. And because they come so often, they know the system, which means they can get a 15-minute wait. And this family, who comes once every 3 years, is determined to ride Kilimanjaro safaris no matter the wait. But because they come so infrequently, they don't know the system, so they have to wait longer, which they do because they don't visit that often. And to raise the stakes, for the regular visitor with an annual pass, the cost of their visit is abstract, as they paid a fixed annual price and likely already got their money's worth, while this family knows exactly how much it costs for them and their children to be inside of the park that day, increasing the pressure to get their money's worth, thus increasing the amount of time they are willing to wait. And because the capacity of rides are determined by design and operation, the supply is finite. So this exact scenario plays out over and over again, to the point where someone might just wonder, hey, if you have a limited amount of shoes to sell, stop giving them to people that don't want them for $30. Instead, just get rid of the system and let people self-select. Some rides will have long waits, some rides will have short waits, but at least everyone will be making a personal decision based on the context of their visit, and not how good they are at playing the My Disney Experience app as if it were a slot machine. I know that some might disagree with this conclusion. There you are, and I understand there's a level of subjectivity to this. Your experiences are not incorrect. FastPass Plus allowed guests that were not frequent visitors to have incredible vacations, but based on the evidence both in the simulation and in real life, the truth is that, in practice, FastPass Plus was
and
not
then
a
we
more
will
fair
go
system
about
than no system, and it often was
sorting
the
out all of our
opposite. Perhaps the
cargo
best
and whatnot,
compromise
selling
between
off what
FastPass Plus
we
and a
came
no
to sell
FastPass
and
park is
deliver what we came to
unsurprisingly
deliver.
the original paper FastPass system in its initial limited capacity. This retains the guest distribution benefits of the system, while also maintaining the natural self-selection process that guests go through when making decisions. Most importantly, while knowledge remains a dividing factor among guests, the original FastPass system reset every single day. With FastPass Plus, when guests arrived at the resort, it was too late to educate them on the system. FastPasses for the most popular rides had already been gone for months. With Paper FastPass, guests might find themselves unaware of the system on day 1 of their vacation, but they could quickly learn it and be utilizing it by day 2. This is why Disneyland's MaxPass system was more favorable to many guests. It was essentially the original FastPass system, except for digital rather than physical, the only caveat being that it cost money to utilize, which was its most divisive aspect. The original paper FastPass was an idea that was birthed from
we'll
within
move our
operations,
trout over there,
while
sell our
FastPass
trout,
Plus,
then we'll
by all
deliver the trout that
indications,
they asked
was a
us to
system
bring.
birthed from marketing. Its intention was not to make operations more smooth within the park. Its purpose was to be a key part of a larger guest experience initiative. So it should not be shocking to suggest, based on all of the evidence that we have viewed, that guests and operations would fare better without FastPass Plus. But what am I talking about? They spent $1 billion on this. They're not getting rid of anything. So...
Yeah, that's kind of the problem, isn't it? Okay, yeah, so it does count the storage areas being over here. I wish that it would count storage areas out here on the pier.
So what started as a neat little idea has turned into a $1 billion monster that is now actively eating guests at the park. What do? You could kill the monster, but you don't want to because you spent $1 billion making it, and some guests have befriended the monster and have really come to like it, so that would be sad for them. Okay, so we're not killing it. What if the monster was friends with everybody? Can't do that. As long as the monster is still alive, it has to eat a certain amount of people. What if the monster had more friends than it does now? In order for the monster to be able to have more friends, i.e. FastPass users, there would need to be more ride capacity. This could be done by adding new attractions. However, many argue that this will trigger induced demand, which is when increasing the supply of something also increases its demand. The most common example being a highway adding another lane, and rather than reducing traffic, it actually increases congestion. This is not perfectly comparable to theme parks. The reason traffic increases when you add a lane to a highway is because the increased supply reduces the price, or in this case, congestion, enough for the demand to increase in response. New drivers are not generated simply by the allure or appeal of the lane itself. However, in theme parks, this is the case. New rides, especially good ones, almost always draw in new guests, often offsetting any capacity gained by the addition. Also, building new rides is expensive and takes time, and is by no means a quick fix. What if you could increase the capacity of an already existing ride? As we've discussed, ride capacity is finite, and is determined by design and operation. You can't just put more ride cars on Space Mountain.
No more having to squeak.
What if it wasn't finite? Well, unfortunately,
Always a good day.
Unless you were to just build a second Dumbo right next to the first one. So they did that. But that's an easy one. You can't do that with most rides. Like, you can't just build another theater for Soarin'. You can actually, and they did. But that was to support the new Soarin' Around the World ride film. Would they really do that with a ride just to quietly increase capacity? But despite all of these strategies to increase capacity and thus slow down the monster continued to grow for a factor that we have not even discussed yet: attendance. When Paper FastPass was introduced in 1999, 42.6 million people visited Walt Disney World annually. When XPass was developed in 2008, 47.1 million people visited annually. By the time FastPass Plus rolled out in 2013, 50.1 million people visited annually. In 2014, 51.5 million people visited.
Disgusting.
In 2015, 54 million. By 2019, over 58 million people were visiting the resort annually, a 16% increase since when FastPass Plus was introduced. The FastPass system was designed to be dynamic, but the rate at which attendance increased was unpredictable, and FastPass Plus did not operate well under it, so the monster only grew
I don't
bigger.
actually need to stack these in like a good fashion. I just do it because my brain wants me to.
To many different demographics.
It would be way faster if I didn't insist on stacking them in an orderly fashion.
One specific ride. If the park has an annual increase of 100,000 visitors, not all 100,000 visitors want to ride Space Mountain. Compare this to a park like Animal Kingdom, that in 2017 added Pandora: The World of Avatar, a heavily promoted and well-received addition to a park that doesn't have that many attractions to offer. From 2016 to 2017, Animal Kingdom saw an increase of 1.7
bring our last crate in,
From
sell all of our
2017 to
stuff,
2018,
deliver the
it
crate
saw an
of
increase
trout
of
that
an
they
additional
ordered.
1.2 million guests.
Make money.
Because this was sparked by a single land that only had 2 attractions,
Make money, get
it is safe to
boats.
assume that the majority of these visitors not only wanted to ride Flight of Passage, but that they were determined to. Not only were they determined to, but it was the only reason they chose to visit Animal Kingdom in the first place. This is known as inelastic demand, when the wait time of a ride has little to no effect on the amount of people that want to ride it. This was the case with Flight of Passage, as it seemed that no wait time would turn guests away. As a result, wait times increased to 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours.
Wish I had gotten that receipt though
5 hours
at the other port. That way I would know how much I made.
6 hour and 40-minute wait for the 4.5-minute attraction. So with
Good
attendance
Lord.
increasing and with additional capacity on its way, guests were starting to notice the issues. In response, departments throughout Walt Disney World argued that they should be given additional fast passes. Guest services wanted more fast passes for compensation purposes, while the resorts argued that they needed more fast passes at the 60-day mark so that hotel guests could receive their perks. In 2018, club-level guests at select resorts were allowed access to a new tier of Fast Pass Plus,
it's wine.
allowing them to book 6 Fast
I've done
Passes
that
in
once
advance,
before. I'm not doing
3
it
at the
again.
90-day
Not making
mark,
that mistake
and 3
twice.
more at the 60-day mark for an upcharge of $50 per person per day. The more Fast Passes that were handed out, the more the monster grew and grew and grew. Then, in the summer of 2019, Universal Orlando debuted a new ride at their Islands of Adventure theme park, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter's Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure TM. The new ride was heavily anticipated and drew large crowds. There was only one issue. It did not work, at least not consistently. This led to frequent downtimes throughout the first few weeks of operation, and when paired with the massive demand, waits climbed to up to 10 hours. Why is this relevant? Because also in the summer of 2019, Disney was opening its heavily anticipated Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. After reports that crowds for the new land were far less than expected, the chairman of Disney Parks, Experiences and Products, Bob Chapek, took a jab at Universal, saying, quote, "The deep secret is that we don't intend to have lines. If you build in enough capacity, the rides don't go down, and it operates at 99% efficiency, you shouldn't have 10-hour lines. So 10-hour lines are not a sign of success. It should be seen as a sign of, frankly, failure." Coincidentally, Disney was about to debut another ride for Galaxy's Edge, Star Wars Rise of the Resistance, the land's signature attraction, which, like Hagrid's, did not work consistently, and the ride was primed for the Fast Pass monster to swallow guests, resulting in huge wait times. Under pressure to open the ride anyways, Disney took extreme measures to ensure that wait times remained under control, in order to keep guests comfortable and satisfied, and not at all because the chairman of the parks publicly deemed a 10-hour line a failure in the press months earlier. When Rise of the Resistance opened at Walt Disney World in December of 2019, it utilized a new virtual queue system that completely eliminated the standby line in favor of assigning guest boarding groups that would be called throughout the day. The idea reportedly came from, of all places, the DMV, that had implemented a customer service system in which guests calling the helpline were given a call back rather than being put on hold. So that's where we are, everybody. The virtual queue nearly eliminated lines for Rise of the Resistance, but it left many guests frustrated when boarding groups ran out almost immediately in the morning, with the app informing guests that the ride was booked for the rest of the day before the sun had even come up. But hey, there were no 10-hour lines, so it did its job. Speaking of new systems, also in 2019, at the D23 Expo in Anaheim, Bob Chapek announced, whatever this is.
It's called Disney Genie. It will put customized itineraries geared towards your interests at your fingertips.
Gotta buy a barrel of water while I'm here too now.
Plan and research.
So with the old system raging on, a new one just beginning, and a future one in development, the beast was growing faster
We'll sell
than ever.
this barrel
Every
to that
attempt to fix
fellow.
the problem was at best a stall, but most often, the attempts only made the monster's damage worse. The amount of guests that the system benefited
How much does he
declined,
want
while those
for
that did
it?
benefit were more loyal to it than ever.
95
because it was more
crowns.
necessary
How much
than
are you
ever to
selling
have a
them
good
for?
time at the
If
parks.
you're selling
The
them.
more fast passes that were added to the system, the more the monster grew. The more people that came to the parks, the more the monster grew. The monster grew and grew until Walt Disney World had finally succumbed to the beast.
Guess we're just buying the barrel from him.
Well, boss, good news. We broke everything.
Huh? What do you mean?
You know that thing that doesn't directly make us money that we spent $1 billion on?
Yeah?
Well, it's broken. But on the bright side, it also broke everything. Look.
Those people are just trying to go to the attractions. Why is it...
Eating them? I don't know.
Why isn't it eating those people?
Oh, those people are friends with it.
Oh my gosh, how is this good news?
Everything is broken.
Yeah, but how is that good?
Come on, boss, don't you see? Everything is broken, which means we can charge people money to bypass the mess we created.
Huh?
Right now, most of the people that have befriended the monster are buying rooms at our hotels, and as a perk, the monster won't eat them as much. But our research shows that getting rid of this perk won't really hurt our hotel business all that much. So instead, let's just start charging people to be friends with the monster. Look at this graph. This kind of advantage shouldn't be a hotel perk. It should be an additional charge.
Dotson, you're a genius.
Boss, that's not even the best part. Look at all these people. They're where the real money is.
We're going to charge people to have a worse day?
No, of course not. But we're gonna make money from them. See, It takes these people 10 hours to do 6 rides. That's not even accounting for walking, bathroom breaks, or meals. The park is only open for 12 hours. There's no way they're gonna do those 6 rides in a single day, which means...
They'll have to come another day, which means they'll have to buy more tickets.
Exactly. Either they buy into the system to do everything they want to do in one day, or they have to do multiple days, which means more money for us.
This really is genius.
And all it took was $1 billion and a lot of mistakes.
Well, Dotson, in life, you win some, you lose some. And sometimes you manage to do both at the same time.
There's just one problem. The Friends of the Monster are not going to be happy with us when we charge for this.
Oh, you're right. That would be a PR nightmare. It would take some sort of global cataclysmic event that would shut down our business long enough for us to make drastic changes to our operating procedure, while also giving us a shield from criticism of those changes.
Oh, did you not hear?
Breaking just into our newsroom, a historic move amid the coronavirus. Walt Disney World and Universal Orlando both announcing they are closing their theme parks.
And your reaction?
Sad.
Do you understand why?
Yeah. Yes.
After being closed for 4 months for the COVID-19 pandemic, Walt Disney World reopened in July of 2020, while Disneyland would not reopen until April of 2021. When they did, both FastPass Plus and MaxPass had been suspended for social distancing purposes, and a new park reservation system was implemented to limit crowds. Bob Chapek was now the CEO of Disney after Bob Iger suddenly and coincidentally retired 2 weeks before the world shut down. Chapek commented on the changes coming to the parks as they reopened, saying, quote, "Obviously nobody wants to have the parks closed for up to a year, but at the same time, we realized that was a unique opportunity maybe to advance some things that would have been difficult, if not impossible, for us to go change in an operating environment. And so we made some moves already, but we're going to make further moves." These moves were revealed in August of 2021 when Disneyland announced that both FastPass Plus and MaxPass would be officially discontinued. Replacing the programs would be the long-anticipated Genie app. The Genie app would use all of Disney's internal data as well as guest preferences to intelligently plan itineraries in order to maximize efficiency throughout the parks. Unlike FastPass Plus, Genie is simple. There are now 4 ways to visit attractions: the standby queue, the virtual queue, Lightning Lane through Genie Plus, or Lightning Lane through additional purchases. For any ride, guests can still choose to wait in the standby line, except for the rides in which they can't, which are the ones using virtual queue. If an attraction is using virtual queue, guests must wake up at 7 a.m. on the day of and attempt to join the virtual queue from their phones. If they don't get a boarding group, then they will have another chance once they are inside the park at 1 p.m. If guests don't want to wait in the standby line or use a virtual queue, for $15 per person per day, they can upgrade to Genie Plus, which is similar to Disneyland's Max Pass, allowing them to obtain 1 Lightning Lane pass every 2 hours or after the first one is redeemed, except rather than being inside the park, they can make their first reservation from anywhere at 7 a.m. on the day of. However, not all Lightning Lane attractions are included in Genie Plus. Some are available for additional purchase with varying prices depending on the season. For instance, the Lightning Lane for Rise of the Resistance, which moved to a seasonal standby queue, will cost $15 per person, so guests either pay $15 per person to enter the Lightning Lane or enter the standby queue if it is available. If not, they need to wake up at 7 a.m. to enter the virtual queue, or just pay the $15 per person to enter the Lightning Lane. See? Simple. And hugely popular. Or is it? Who's to say? There were rumors of paid FastPass long before the pandemic, since Disneyland, Hong Kong Disneyland, Disneyland Paris, and Shanghai Disneyland all utilize some form of a paid FastPass system. And with the introduction of Genie Plus, Tokyo Disneyland is now the only remaining park to utilize free FastPass, still using a combination of paper and digital passes. There's 2 ways to look at this change: the optimistic version and the pessimistic version. The optimistic version is that Disney is once again trying to improve everyone's enjoyment of the parks, this time by reducing the amount of people using the FastPass system. If this occurs, it will reduce standby wait times while giving once-in-a-lifetime vacationers the option to experience more.
Now we'll go buy food and then we're going to leave.
Model of only
Get off
allowing
this
guests to book
stinking
passes
island.
day
Sunspire
of
is
seems
a
to be a
curse.
deliberate attempt to reduce the negative side effects caused by FastPass Plus. Combining this with rising ticket prices, which reduce demand, and a park reservation system to place a cap on guests and predict how many guests will visit, Disney now has more control over crowds than ever. Plus, the Genie app suggestion and itinerary tools will be able to reproduce some of the positive distribution features of FastPass Plus by directing guests to underutilized areas of the park, and it could even increase the average number of attractions per day. The pessimistic version is that Disney wants money. They increase ticket prices not to reduce demand and lower crowds, but because they can. They're not charging for FastPass to get less people to use the system, they're charging for it because they can. The $15 price for Genie Plus seems to be a good indication that Disney expects a majority of vacationers to buy into the system. And if utilization remains anywhere close to FastPass Plus, every travel agent and vacation guide will suggest that their travelers buy into the system, because $15 to experience all of the rides in one day is a lot cheaper than spreading out a park visit over 2 or more days. The paid FastPass system also gives Disney more motivation than ever to inflate wait times and favor Lightning Lane over standby, with the job of the cast member at the merge point becoming even more difficult. The truth might be somewhere in the middle of these two outlooks. Disney understands they need to reduce usage of FastPass Plus, and rather than getting rid of it, they choose the option that also makes them money. So far, the amount of passes offered seems somewhat limited, with Lightning Lane on popular attractions running out quickly in the morning, but who knows if this will remain the case. As with FastPass and FastPass Plus, the true effects of the new system likely will not be seen for quite some time. So the FastPass beast has finally been killed, or maybe it's just been put inside a cage, behind stronger paywalls. Maybe it will get out one day, or maybe it will remain under control. But what a monster it has become. In a way, we've truly come full circle. In 1971, Magic Kingdom opened with a ticket system in which guests had to pay to ride each ride. And exactly 50 years later, in 2021, guests are once again paying to ride rides, or at least skip the line. Despite a similar destination, the path that queuing at the Disney parks has taken over the past 5 decades was anything but predictable. And this long, winding narrative shines a light on an oft-overlooked aspect of the theme park industry. We have examined ad nauseum the ways in which Imagineers and theme park designers create immersive worlds that transport guests out of their reality and into a new one. But the story of FastPass is one of the rare tales that belongs not to the Imagineers, but to operations. If the Imagineers' job is to design and construct environments that entertain and immerse guests, it is the job of operations managers, cast members, and industrial engineers to operate and maintain these environments. And their job is more involved in a park's escapism than one might initially think. When operations find strategies and test systems that have the potential to take the guest experience to the next level, they are not merely increasing guest satisfaction, but they are supporting the environments and stories of the parks by offering a higher level of escapism. There is no better example of this than FastPass. Long lines have always been a disruptive force in the Disney parks, detracting from the guest experience and often the design intentions of the park's theming. After all, the real world has lines. At the bank, at restaurants, at the DMV. Attempting to remove them, or at least giving guests the ability to avoid them, has the potential to create an experience better than reality, thus assisting in the escapism and immersion of the parks. However, with the evolution of FastPass, we also saw the opposite side of this coin. Instead of operations creating a reality better than ours, the disparities and inequalities of the real world were allowed to creep in. Whether guests were separated by knowledge specific to the park or their personal financial situation, utilizing a system that allows for these disparities can take away from the intention, uniqueness, and beauty of the theme park experience. This is not to say that these strategies weren't worth experimenting with, and I'm sure that we'll see many more in the future. As we know, queuing is always evolving, and no one knows for sure what the next step will be. But what does seem certain is that as long as there is something worth waiting for, there will probably be a wait for it. So I'll ask you again, how much do you know about lines?
How much do you know about lines? It sounds like an easy question, and then you learn about lines, and suddenly it's not quite so simple. It's actually disgustingly complicated. Oh no. Oh. I don't know what's going on here, but my computer appears to be bricking. Send help. Let's see. I literally can't do anything. I don't even know if the stream's still. I don't know if you can hear me. I know you can't see me. I don't know how stream is still up. To be entirely honest. It's not one thing, it's another. Okay, hold on. Let me check something. Yeah, I can't even move my mouse. Nothing is responding. I don't know how you're still hearing me. I don't know how the stream is still up. I guess that's gonna be where we end stream. I'm gonna send you all off on a raid to Faithful. My apologies. I don't know what has happened, but I'm going to have to manually shut down the computer, so that will end stream. I'm going to send you all through that. My apologies, everybody. Hopefully I can get things working again later. But for now, I guess, goodbye. Hey.